Dallas Turner, Jared Verse and Laiatu Latu. We're breaking down three of the best edge rushers in the 2024 NFL Draft today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big shout out, thank you, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every single day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Joe, happy Friday. March
Friday.
22nd, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our third position group, I believe, for the NFL Draft. Top of the class.
Yeah, top of the class. Third
Deep
one.
dives,
Yeah.
and I know we've each done more than just the names we're going to talk about here today.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
I have an answer, hopefully.
Have you or have you not watched any of the college basketball tournament?
No.
Not a single second.
No.
Me neither.
I, quite frankly, am physically incapable of caring less about something.
I feel like I'm in the same place every single year. Dude, they've been playing college basketball since like October.
And nobody's talked about it. And now magically,
not a word.
On. It's so great. There's all the more teams are playing the whole year.
Right. Not a word
to play for. It's a tournament. It's elimination. There's drama. Kentucky goes down in Calipari's got to go out and talk about how all his one and done recruits lost their composure because they missed a dunk. Like, I get it. Did you see that? They lost.
No, I see. You're aware of way more than I am. I tell you that.
3-seed Kentucky lost to Oakland.
Okay. Is Oakland good?
I don't. Maggie would say the great state of Michigan.
Okay, I thought Oakland was in California. So
I think that was the clarification. Was everybody thought it was that Oakland, but it's a different Oakland.
Okay.
And there's a guy who plays for Oakland who has shot like 350 career 3-point attempts and only like 8 2-point attempts in his entire college career or something like that.
Scouting report there's easy. He's going to shoot threes.
Right, yeah, just defend the 3-point line. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I get the romantic nature of brackets, but it's just not for me. And I don't have the bandwidth for it.
Yeah, I don't either. I'd rather watch prospects. So that's what we did do instead. We watch prospects.
Yeah.
So Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Laiatu Latu. That's who we're talking about today. We're going to kick this off with Dallas Turner. And our objective is to talk to you about why your team should be thinking about drafting Dallas Turner, and then what concerns exist that you need to be mindful of if you do make an investment in that player. So Dallas Turner, 6'3", 247, 34 and 3/8-inch arms. Alabama edge rusher. He's young, 21 years old. He'll be 21 for his entire rookie season. The reigning SEC Defensive Player of the Year. When you watch the tape, Kyle, why should an NFL team be interested in drafting Dallas Turner?
Traits. All the traits are there. And he's been a productive player, too. Yeah. I think that's important to note. This is not just he's toolsy kind of guy, which those guys exist. And sometimes they get drafted pretty high. That's not Dallas Turner. He played at the highest level of competition and was one of the centerpiece pieces for the Alabama defense with prototypical tools. Do you maybe wish that he was a little bit more of a heavy-handed player in comparison to some of the other players in the class? Yes, but if you're looking for length, separation skills, first step explosiveness, football IQ, I think all of those things are there for Dallas Turner. And I think when you cross-reference the production with the youth, with the athletic profile, it's a very easy overall resume to fall in love with.
Yeah, I would agree with what you said there. And one of my favorite things about watching Dallas Turner was the length and how he played with that extension. And man, there's times where he gets those arms out and he can really reach. Like his radius is really, really impressive. And I think that's important for a guy he's probably going to be under 250 pounds for his career. Being able to play with extension in that length is awesome. Another thing that I really enjoyed about watching Dallas Turner was how, I think I've always appreciate this about defensive ends or edge players. Like they do all the little stuff. They chip the tight ends, like they're intentional about doing it. They take on pullers, willing to wrong arm and get down there and take them on and not just get blasted out of a gap. I think he plays fundamentally sound football, but also there's power components for a guy that is kind of a lean build.
Yeah. And I think for Dallas, what was important for me, knowing what the stature was of a player, was how does he win along the line of scrimmage? And I think I think his stature helps him a little bit because he's sub 6'3", right? So that gives him a little bit of leverage. So the leverage of his frame with the abnormal length, you don't see a lot of guys who are 21st percentile in height and 88th percentile in length, right?
Yeah,
for arm
exactly.
length. It's a unique but convenient blend of kind of oddities that he checks in at, where he doesn't have that jolt that the heavier handed guys do, but because he does have this large sphere of influence with his wingspan, he uses it to his advantage. And then a lot of the splash production stuff that I saw was just initial play reaction parlayed with the first step explosiveness that he has. He won a lot of reps really early. So you say, okay, there's elements of beating you with just being a better athlete than you, but I find I can reconcile and find reasons why I don't have concern that that's all you have in your bag and you're not going to be able to draw on something else when you get to the league.
I think we've kind of gotten to some of the concerns in the analysis for what we like about him, but I think it is fair to point out that, heavy hands, that's not necessarily what he is at this point. I think he's still a guy that is learning how to blend it all together. I think it is good that the production is there. And I love that you pointed out that he wins early, because I watched another edge rusher recently. I'm not going to name names, where super athletic, super long. You're just like, are you ever going to win a one-on-one? Are you ever going to do this? Like everything is just hustle and like after the snap, just chasing. Right. And like, that's great, but that limits your ceiling. You're more of a rotational guy as opposed to, all right, I think you could be a featured piece of a defense. And maybe not every scheme's going to love Dallas Turner, but I feel like even more of the even front teams are warming up to not having to have these big burly defensive ends. I think like you're seeing more and more of these types fitting into the even front looks.
Yeah. And just looking at the comparables for Dallas Turner, courtesy of Mock Draftable, from an athletic profile perspective, the number one match is Josh Sweat, right? It's
like that.
Right around 250 plus athlete. Sweat came in the league with some medical questions, and I think I had him top 32 that year when he came out.
You were a big fan. Yeah. Yeah.
And it took him a little bit to kind of piece it all together. Brian Burns is on that list of comparables for Dallas Turner. Arnold Ebiketie, who was a second-round pick, Lorenzo Carter. So a lot of familiar names. Some of them, there's kind of a range of first and second-round players. We certainly expect Dallas in this draft class, after a strong athletic profile and a strong season this past year, where she, I think, set career marks in all the major statistical categories. You expect he's going to go high. Would I be overly surprised if he went to a place that was sorely missing other pass rushers? If it did take him, if you looked at his year 3 forecast and it was better than what his year 1 forecast would be as he kind of works through and how to blend all that stuff together, like you said, no, I wouldn't be surprised. I think the trip to him being a super high impact pass rusher in year 1 is probably predicated a little bit on him having some of those 101s and not being a player that is getting a lot of extra attention in your pass protection.
I have 2 remaining questions on Dallas Turner that I'm going to give you on the other side of it. And of course, we're going to get to Jared Verse as well. So be sure to stick with us. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How is your social battery right now? Are you drained? Are you bursting with energy? What's the right amount of socializing for you? And how do you recharge? Maybe you thrive around people, or maybe you need some more alone time. Therapy can help you get the self-awareness needed to build a social life that doesn't drain your battery. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who've experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, be sure to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find your social sweet spot with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
Feed me your questions.
Yeah, so these are predictive questions. Predictively, Is this the first edge rusher drafted?
Yes.
Predictively, is this the first defensive player drafted?
No.
It was a quick yes on that first one.
Yeah.
You're thinking about Quinyon Mitchell, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm thinking about Atlanta at 8.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go quarterback. Arizona, if they stay, they would probably take a wide receiver. If they trade out, you might get another quarterback.
I'm gonna do a plug. I'm gonna do a shameless plug here. Well, not really shameless. So, as we've done every year on the Locked On Podcast Network, we do a full first round mock draft where all the team local hosts, make picks for their teams.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought of Atlanta as a spot for Dallas Turner or Quinyon Mitchell. There was a scenario that unfolded that made perfect sense
both,
for it
right?
to not. Yeah, they could have had either one, and they made a better pick, in my opinion. So make sure you guys check that out whenever it comes out in the next few weeks.
Couple weeks, yeah. All right,
So
Jared Verse,
Florida State, 6'4", 254 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, RAS score of a 9.56. Last couple seasons at Florida State after transferring in from Albany State were really, really productive. 29.5 tackles for loss, 18 sacks, 3 pass breakups, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries over the last 2 years at Florida State. Kind of let you know a little bit about him, Kyle. When you pop on the tape, why should teams be drafting this guy?
Power.
Yeah, dude.
Speed to power. Holy smokes.
Got it.
He dusted that Florida tackle and bull rushed him straight back into the quarterback and got a sack off of it. It's just pushing the tackle back. If you're looking for explosive ability and power, this is the best combo in the class. And you and I have talked at length about the translatability of guys who run the arc versus guys who reduce the angles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Verse with his explosiveness, but then the speed rush ability. And Brett Coleman did an outstanding 9-minute video on Jared Verse on YouTube. I don't know if you guys have caught that or not, but Brett does great content. And I know he did a Jared Verse when I was finished watching him. That's always kind of what I like to kind of catch up on where everybody's at with some of these players. And he actually did like a bit on like reducing angles and how his rush types complement each other to really piece it all together, which we just got finished talking with about with Dallas Turner. So I think Verse has a very complete pass rush palette and skill set. And that's why if you were to be looking to draft an edge player, Jared Verse should be on your radar.
Looking at my little package of notes here that I took on Jared Verse, the first two bullet points. Number 1 is impressive blend of power and athleticism. Number 2, deadly ability to convert speed to power, bull rush, and collapse the width of the pocket. I mean, it's right there. He's fun, man. I love the toolbox. I love the effort. I love he's got length too. He's got over 33-inch arms.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful hands. Like, there's going to be edge rushers that we're going to talk about in this class. We just talked about Dallas Turner, where maybe you wish that there was a little bit more pop in those punches. Jared Verse has got rock back power, man. Yeah, dude. He's got power in those strikes.
Can I give you a take?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a spoiler for segment 3, but Jared Verse, out of these 3 guys, is comfortably my top edge player. By a significant margin, Jared Verse is my edge one.
Okay, so I have them fairly closely rated.
Okay.
And I don't have him as my edge one.
And I'm assuming it's not Dallas Turner.
Yeah, I got
the next guy.
The next guy's my top guy.
Which we'll talk about. Okay, so that's.
But I love Verse. Yeah, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
Why, Joe? Why does Joe hate Jared Verse? Why does Kyle hate Laiatu Latu?
We're not doing.
Why do you both hate Dallas Turner?
Right. So we just sit here and said predictably it's Dallas Turner. I think most people are going to have Dallas Turner as
I would think so too. I think the pedigree with how well he tested with how long he is and that first step explosiveness is why I do think Dallas Turner ends up getting the first call, because he was anywhere like a 1-5-6 10-yard split or something like that.
That's healthy. That's real healthy if that's what it was, my guy.
I know Verse ran a 1-6 10-yard split at 255 pounds with the kind of power that he has. We'll take you for a ride. So what's your concern with Jared Verse?
I'll read you the first bullet point I have. Impact wavered from game to game in 2023, which is frustrating because it's clear that he's able to dominate. I think he had a kind of a slower start to the season. He misses a lot of tackles too, which was a little surprising to me. Like, for as productive as he is, some times where I just want to be able to get people down a little bit more consistency. Thought sometimes he ran himself out of run fits. And I don't think this is a player that, if you want to do a lot of like coverage drops with him, don't do that. That's not good. You want
that's not you.
Pocket.
Pick a different player,
right,
if you're going to do that.
Right.
You're doing him a disservice if that's the assignments that he's going to draw. Dallas Turner 154 according to his RAS for his 10-yard split.
Healthy.
Not to sneeze at the 1-6 posted by Jared Verse with an extra 10 pounds of weight on his frame.
You have any concerns for you with Verse?
I think he's the most complete profile. And that was, for me, the separation between why he was the one that I came away liking the most. I saw the ability to win with speed. I saw the ability to correctly anticipate pass rush counters. I saw the ability to reduce angles and convert speed to power. I think his control at the line of scrimmage and deconstruction of blocks when it was on was the most consistent of any of these guys. And I think it's a frame that carries a little bit more mass, a little easier. It was just a lot to like. A lot.
Kyle, this is why I love you, man. I asked you what other concerns you had about Jared Verse.
You're like, all pros.
You said, no, as a matter of fact, he's the most complete edge of any of these guys. Let me tell you exactly why I like him. So
and that's why I like him the most, because it's like I can't really poke the holes with a great deal of consistency.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones you sit down and you're like, man, I just feel like, what are you going to nitpick him till the cows come home?
I respect it.
It's the Tremaine Edmonds coverage factor, right? He's in position to make some plays that other guys wouldn't even dream of making off of blocks. So if he misses the tackle, how much grief can I really give him for getting in a position most guys wouldn't?
Some teams going to be real happy selecting Jared Verse the end of April. And we got another guy that I think is going to make some teams happy, or a team happy if they pick him, Laiatu Latu. We're breaking him down on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with us. Say goodbye to busted brackets. Sounds like the Kentucky people. The buckets
busted.
It's busted.
The brackets are busted.
It's busted. And I mean, if you had Oakland, then good on you. But if you're,
did anybody who didn't go to Oakland have Oakland?
I always assume that the answer, like, there's such a large sample size. The answer is definitely yes. But if your bracket's busted, well, that's okay, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament, whether you're betting on a big upset, hello Oakland, or a 1 seed. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, check this out, new customers, you can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the net.
You've been doing a great job with the introductory primers. You want to take this one too while you're at it?
I will. I was just thinking of, like, that is kind of a cool thing that basketball does, right? Like, cut down the net. Everybody gets a little piece.
I watched the fine folks in Knoxville bring down the whole uprights after they beat Alabama the other year. and
what
dump
is
it into the
cooler?
river.
Wait, what's cooler? Tearing down a goalpost or cutting
The
down net?
goalpost, because
Yeah.
it's the net's just like a little thing of fabric that's up on the rim, right? They take the whole posts down.
Have you seen these ones that just go down on their own? Have you the mechanics that those things go down, boy, you better be out of the way.
Yeah, don't be standing underneath of them.
I was at South Carolina Ole Miss. Javon Sneed, the quarterback, versus Garcia. Was Stephen Garcia for South Carolina?
Stephen Garcia.
Ole Miss was like a top 2 team in the country, and South Carolina beat them. And I saw those goalposts go down. Everybody rushed the field. I was like, man, I'm glad they got them. Like, that's hazardous.
They don't want to leave them up because they knew they were going to come down.
They were coming down if they were up. So yeah, that is cool. You know what the weirdest tradition in sports is? It's the whole octopus thing. When there's a hat trick in
Detroit,
hockey,
right,
brother?
It's Detroit.
I think about this all the time. People just putting an octopus in their pocket in the off chance that there's going to be a hat trick. You can't be doing that. You can't just be rolling around.
Where does somebody buy it? Where do you buy an octopus?
I don't know, man. You can't do it. You cannot just be having an octopus in your pocket.
Like, is that at the seafood markets, or is that like a black market thing? Or like, I could be honest, I'm a big seafood guy. I don't think I've ever gone walking through the market and been like, oh, there's
in Michigan.
Let me go ahead and pocket one. Yeah.
Right. Like maybe like if it was somewhere on the coast there, I don't know, dude. It's just, it's unfathomable to me. It's like all of a sudden there's like not just 1 or 2, bro. The whole ice is full of octopuses.
Is it octopi?
I don't know. I thought about that and I just went with that. And so I don't know. Maybe you can float around and produce this thing. I'll tell people about Laiatu Latu, 6'5", edge rusher from UCLA. He started his career at Washington, medically retired due to a neck injury. And then he winds up going to UCLA. He did sit out for a season and had 2 very productive years for UCLA. 6'5", 259, 32 and 5/8 on the arms, RAS score of a 9.35. Over the last 2 years at UCLA, he filled up the box score: 34 tackles for loss, 23.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions for himself over the last couple of seasons. So there's the introduction. Kyle, what's the plural of an octopus?
Both, quote, courtesy of dictionary.com. Both octopuses and octopi are acceptable plurals for octopus.
That's what I like to hear. I like to hear that I can't be wrong.
It's a simpler and more commonly used.
All right. So what do you pop on the tape with Laiatu? What
this is the hottest motor of all 3 of these guys. This dude plays with his hair on fire. He flies around and it's effort. There's some really nice hand counter strikes in there as well with him. I think of all the guys that we've talked about, he felt like he was the one who made the most impact kind of dropping off into shallow coverages. I know he had 1 interception on a tip ball that he ran back to the 1-yard line. And then he had another one that was kind of like a zone. They ran like a fire zone where he flat dropped and had an interception there too. So a little surprising that the guy that's 260 is the guy who's getting off the line of scrimmage and making some plays in space, but there he is. But I was just really impressed with the urgency in which he played with, while it was also evident that he was a explosive first step player. And I think he's really smooth. I think of all the guys, he's probably the most fluid with how his just body moves when he's moving laterally or forward.
Moves on top of moves for Laiatu. I love that. He's got a plan, man. He's got a lot of different ways that he can beat blocks. And like you mentioned, a very, very high motor player. I have written down that he's an elite competitor that plays every snap like it's his last. And I just love that he's never content being blocked, and he's always got an answer. He's always got something he's going to try to get off that block. You see some of these players that like, all right, their initial plan fails. Well, we'll just try to push and, just play peekaboo. Yeah, no, Laiatu is going to keep bringing it and try to get off those blocks, which I appreciate about him. I think he's a good processor, and there's an excitement that I got when I watched him on tape. And I think a lot about this conversation that I had with Jim Nagy when we were discussing a prospect, and I liked him and Jim didn't. Jim just said, you know what, Joe, I just didn't get excited when I watched him. I get excited when I watch Laiatu. Like, there's something infectious about watching him play the game that I fall in love with it. It's like you watch Aiden Hutchinson at Michigan, you watch a guy like TJ Watt, where that's just like nonstop effort with technique, and it's something that I'm gonna fall for a lot of times, and I think you get that at a high level with Laiatu.
I think that's a totally fair. If your X factor is just the fire in the belly, I think that's where Latu really stands out in a good way on film. I guess let me ask you this. How do you think teams are going to approach the medical question there?
It's going to be 32 different answers on that, right?
Right.
That's why I think.
But it's worth acknowledging
Yeah.
that, I mean, medically retired. I believe it was a neck issue, I think.
Neck, yeah.
I mean, that with other likable edge guys, this could be the guy. I don't know that I'd be surprised slide into the 20s. And that's where an opportunistic team that's a good team is going to afford a landing spot for him. And as long as he medically is 100%, he could really reap the benefits of that.
Well, so I think the name that always comes up for me when I think about this is Jalen Phillips, and maybe you can comment on this because medically retired, and it's an unfortunate injury that he had this past season, but are you concerned? Like, how has that impacted that entire situation?
I think this was the first year that you had year 3, any significant injury issues with Jalen. He had some kind of back thing early in the season that he missed a game that he tweaked on a Friday before the New England game in week 2. And he missed a game, then he came back and played a half a game, and then he missed 3 weeks, and then he was back, and it really felt like the switch flipped, and then he popped the Achilles. So it was just kind of an unfortunate from the very beginning for Jalen, one thing after another for him that kind of prevented his season from ever getting going the way that we thought it was capable of getting going. But not the stuff that, for Jalen, I believe it was head injury was a big part.
What were the questions like? I mean, surely Chris Greer was asked about this when he was drafted. Like,
yeah, the conversation turns into, at what point is the value of the player too good to ignore?
Yeah.
And Jalen Phillips went
19 or something, right?
18?
Something like that, yeah.
And then Kwity Paye went 20 or 21 to the Colts.
Well, little dunk there.
No, I'm just saying that was that edge group debate was Kwity Paye and Jalen Phillips.
Right.
And Jalen ends up being edge 1, but he goes at 18 because that was where they were like, look, at this stage of the game, the tape's the tape. And I think we both had him as a top 8 player in the class.
Well, because we don't dock guys for injuries. We flag them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You just put the note on it and you say, look, here's where I'm going to grade them off the information I have, and teams are going to know better than I am, and we're going to move on.
And that fascinating layer to, you could have one NFL franchise say yes on the board, we're not concerned, and another one say no.
And
looking
if
at
they
the
say
same
no,
data set.
He's going to be off the board.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to leave him up there with the grade that they gave him.
Right.
And leave him up there for three rounds worth of the draft. He's just not going to be on the board.
In terms of like that piece, like setting that aside, other concerns that you might have about Laiatu, I think pad level and being a little bit stronger sometimes against the run. You watch the Oregon State game, you're going to see Fulaga got him, and that's the type of power he's going to deal with all the time in the NFL. And I think that is probably the area of his game. You maybe wish he was a little longer. Maybe you wish he was a little bit more flexible. But I think he makes up for a lot of that with the technique and the motor that he plays with. I think kind of reduces some of my concerns with those other areas.
Yeah, I think his motor really closes the gap. But I would say he's probably the least athletically gifted of the 3 guys that we've talked about.
Yeah.
He has the least amount of length. Confirmed anatomical length. Turner jumped 40 and 10.7. Verse jumped 35 and 10.7. Latu jumped 32 and 9.8. So I think you see some of that athletic discrepancy. And from a pad level perspective, Turner 6'3", versus 6'4", Latu 6'5". Like there's just incrementally, they're getting bigger. So you're getting taller, you're getting less length, and you're getting a little bit less explosive. You have to be more of a high football IQ, really well developed instinctual player. And he is. But I think when you stack that alongside of, for teams, the medical question, I predictively think this will be the third of these three edge rushers to come off the board, even though I kind of have him in front of Turner. I would go Verse Laiatu Turner. It was how I would rank these three players.
And I rank them Laiatu Turner Verse.
You hate Jared Verse
so much. I think, dude,
unbelievable.
Truth be told, I think they're within 1 point of each other. Like, these are very closely graded prospects for me. So
it's a good top of class.
Yeah.
All the buzz about the offensive side of the ball with the wide receivers and if I'm picking in the teens,
love it. Yeah.
I'm sitting here just chomping at the bit. I'm saying, go ahead, draft all the quarterbacks and wide receivers, please. Yeah. Oh, you want to get a couple offensive linemen going? Okay. Get one of these guys in my lap.
Yeah, we don't have Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa, right, in this draft class, but we've got some solid first-round guys here.
For sure. It's a good top of class. It's an interesting discussion, and then there's some names a little later. Chop Robinson, Darius Robinson, just to name a few. That is kind of the next swell for Edge Group, and we'll have that conversation at some point as well. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We are Locked On NFL Scouting. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. We are out of here.